Hey, Armand here with your forecast for March 2023. In terms of the weather, we say March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. That's like transition winter to spring. You know that. This year, astrologically, March comes in like a lion, goes out like a dragon. There's a lot of stuff going on this month. This is the most intense month we've had so far in 2023, and it is the most intense month we've had in a while. We have two planets, Saturn and Pluto, changing signs, separate videos on that for each of those. And we also have the Aries Ingress. We have the spring equinox if you're in the northern hemisphere. And these are all major astrological events. Plus, we have all kinds of other things peppered in there that are going to be kind of exciting or confusing or all of the above. Now, going kind of chronologically, the first thing is we get started out in the early days of March, March 1st and 2nd. We have, the aspects are exact on the 2nd, but we have Venus meeting with Jupiter in Aries. Best friends getting together in a sign that Jupiter likes a lot. Venus is said not to be so happy in Aries, but I think that's a lot of bunk. But they are together and they love to be together. It's a start of like a whole new year, really, the cycle of socialization, Venus to Jupiter. We're getting a new, fresh start on that. It's a fun time. It's midweek, but you know what? You can have fun at midweek too. So for socializing, for romance, there's a sexy, outgoing, fun energy to this that is really great March 1st and 2nd. And also on March 1st and 2nd, Mercury meets with Saturn. Now, this is, a little bit less fun aspect. Usually, Mercury Saturn is when you have to answer to authority. However, in Aquarius, both Mercury and Saturn are quite happy. And I think with Aquarian energy as the major vibe, it's more likely our peers that are going to give us some pressure. You might feel a little extra peer pressure at this time. We're going to be looking, because Saturn is almost out of Aquarius, right? This is happening at the very last degree of Aquarius. There's a lot of reckoning over the last 3 years. Saturn entered Aquarius back in the spring of 2020, and you know how things have been since then. We had the pandemic. We've had all kinds of things that have come up in this in the period of time having to do with the collective discourse. A lot of it's been about the pandemic. A lot of it's been about COVID. A lot of it has been about social justice. And what we're going to see is that kind of thing in the collective very hot over the course of the next week or so. The first week in March, I should say. On the other hand, if you have to ask for a raise or get some time off, this is not a bad time to be talking to authority figures. This is not a bad time to be don't try to get away with anything. Saturn is not going to let you get away with anything. But if you've earned it, if you're in a good position to ask for something, it actually is a good time. Oddly, we're likely to feel more pressure from peers than we are from authority figures with this particular Mercury-Saturn mixture. Next up, what happens next? Next up, we had that Saturn move into Pisces on March 7th. It is accompanied by the full moon in Virgo. So look and see what happens with with Saturn going into Pisces. Issues around the oceans and plastics and oil and plastics in the ocean are likely to be quite prominent. We're also quite likely to see issues around opioids or any kind of drugs. And, I put this all into the Saturn and Pisces forecast that'll be out in just a jiffy, probably right around March 4th or so. You should subscribe so that you get that. And then the one about Pluto going into Aquarius. But look and see what happens on the 7th, because a lot of the flagship issues for Saturn and Pisces are likely to be in the news right around that time, the 7th and the 8th. It is also the Virgo full moon. Now, full moons can be fun, lunacy and all that. In Virgo, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that the Virgo full moon is necessarily all that fun. You do your best, it's fine. But again, we're talking midweek, so see what you can do. What it's likely to do is to add a little extra illumination to Saturn's entry into Pisces, and in fact, his leaving of Aquarius. So you can see issues from either sign being really prominent right around the 7th. It's a high energy period of time for sure. In terms of your personal life, in terms of what you're doing with things, I wouldn't think that it's going to get too far out of control for most of us. But for some of us, but for most of us, I bet not so much. We'll have to see how that plays out. You know what you want to look for, though? You want to look for mid-month. At mid-month, I'm saying between the 13th and the 17th, we have some aspects that really change the flavor of things. Well, they're very Piscean aspects, and I suppose Saturn going into Pisces will have its own effect on these. But we have Mercury and the Sun conjunct Neptune, and then we have Mars squaring the Sun and Neptune. Right, so we have this mixture, if you will, of Martial energy and Neptunian energy, with the Sun and Mercury sort of jammed in the middle. Okay, so Mercury conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Here we're talking about a slippery aspect. This is the con man aspect. But the thing about a really good con man is that they probably believe their own story, at least enough to get the message across. And this is not a time when people are necessarily going to be lying and being deceptive. It's just that a good story is just so much better than those pesky facts. Why do I need all of the information? Why do I have to line up all of these facts? Well, at the end of the day, I got such a good story going. It's treated like a Mercury retrograde. Data goes missing, messages get misinterpreted. It could be a nightmare for travel and stuff like that. All of the usual Mercury retrograde caveats apply. It's for a shorter period of time, but it is probably raised to a power over a typical Mercury retrograde. So this is a very intense time for making mistakes with the data. If you're in the business of dealing with data, this is a good time to take a vacation. Maybe somebody else will go in and mess with your data while you're gone. You can't really presume on any of these planets. Next up, we have the Sun conjunct Neptune. Now, here we're likely to take a person and turn them into something either really wonderful or really horrible. We tend to see too much in a person, potentially a situation, but often a person. They're too wonderful or they're too evil. They are the angel, they are the devil. They're people. At the end of the day, they're people. We're all people. And we obscure that fact when the Sun is conjunct Neptune. Right, this is like the 14th, 15th, 16th. This is right in the middle of the month. But then we have Mars squaring Neptune. So with the Sun and Mercury, what do you want to do? You want to kind of hang back a little bit, let things take care of themselves, see what happens. You don't want to push matters. You don't want to be making any practical decisions at mid-month. That's key. Then we have Mars squaring Neptune just before the Sun and Mercury meet with it, and Mars squaring the Sun right after Mercury and the Sun meet with Neptune. So what's going to happen here? Mars is pushing us into action. Now, Mars is in Gemini, so hopefully it'll be verbal action, although I would be real careful on the roads. I'd be real careful driving. Particularly Mars-Neptune is a real incitement for people to speed, right? So this is people going beyond the boundaries, they're speeding. They want to get there fast. They don't even know where they're going, but they want to get there fast. that kind of thing. So we want to be careful driving throughout this mid-month period of time. Just very, and people will be distracted with the Mercury Neptune. This is, take it easy in yourself. Watch out for others imbibing and driving, and you don't do that yourself. You shouldn't do that at all, but really don't do it at this mid-month period of time. You can't keep yourself together well enough to have a martini and then drive home. That's just not a good idea. So but Mars Neptune, this is folks going off on a crusade. This is folks say, again, with Mars in Gemini, hopefully it'll be verbal, but this is folks going off on a crusade. These are people who are willing to push forward and get their thing done no matter what. It pushes people to extremes. Mars Sun, again, with the sun in Pisces, we have that Neptunian flavor anyway. The sun's not far from Neptune when that happens. But with Mars and the sun, again, got to get in there, got to get into action. But you don't know what you're getting into action over. This is a real setup. The planets have really set us up for mid-month because you don't know what's going on and you really want to do something about it. That doesn't even make any sense, does it? Also on the 16th, Mars in Gemini squares Mercury in Pisces. That's okay because they're in reception, because Mars is in Mercury's sign, as I've said. Mercury is happy to have somebody out in his sign that they can talk to because he's not thrilled about being in Pisces. But you know what you're going to do with this type of thing is you're going to maybe say too much, maybe say the wrong thing. And another thing for this whole period of time is things slip out, information leaks out. You say more than you intend. You say more than you ever really wanted to say. Be real careful with this period of time. Afterwards, we get a little bit of a break. Afterwards, we get some constructive aspects. We have Venus, for example, sextiling Saturn. It's not the most dramatic aspect, I suppose, but you know what? We'll take it. Venus has moved into her home sign of Taurus and is sextiling Saturn in in Pisces, which is one of her favorite signs. Here we have the opportunity to maybe start building something in relationships. And it's also a really nice aspect for finances. It would go well for business partnerships, but I'll tell you what, I would just sort of enjoy this kind of energy. And that is exact, hold on for it, that is exact on the 17th, which is good because right before Venus, right in the midst of all that Mercury, Sun, Mars, Neptune stuff, Venus is also going to square Pluto. She's at the very end of Aries, squaring Pluto at the very end of Capricorn. Well, that could be some tense times. Look back to anything that was going on right around New Year's Eve, which is pretty easy time to remember, and you're likely to be getting the same story, but the next installment of it right around mid-month. Again, I don't know how you're going to process this information to make it work for you, because with all of that Neptunian energy there, you're not quite sure what's going on. People will be breaking up and people will be getting together with this Venus-Pluto thing going on, but it could be a little bit of not the best decision to make. That's why Venus meeting with Saturn a day later, or sextiling Saturn a day later, helps to put an even keel on what could be a very rocky ship in terms of relationships and finances. We have some more nice sextile aspects. The Sun, Mercury, sextile Pluto for a few days. Things are a little good. And then on the 20th, we have the Sun going into Aries. The Aries Ingress is the start of the astrological new year. It feels like it's a time of new beginnings. It is a time of new beginnings. Up until then, we're doing a little bit of a retrospective. And that's true, with Saturn leaving Aquarius, with Pluto leaving Capricorn, and with the Sun, going through Pisces and ending the astrological year. We're looking backwards and we're looking forwards, right? There's retrospection going on, and then there's prospective thinking going on at the same time. But this is not a, you sit down and just think about it kind of stuff. This is active. If there's reflection going on, it's active reflection. If there's speculation about the future, it's active speculation about the future. Not at mid-month, not from the 13th to the 17th, but leave that aside. And we have a time of sort of summing up the past and looking forward to the future. Definitely the ingress there on March 20th of the sun into Aries is a real time of going forward. Oddly enough, it is right before the new moon. So just as the solar cycle takes off, we get a new solar cycle, the lunar cycle for the month is ending. That means that the new moon on the 21st is the double beginning, right? It's a new moon in Aries. So I always think about this as being, the final new year of the year, right? We have the Aries ingress, but then we have the new moon in Aries that happens sometimes. Well, it happens after it always happens after the Aries ingress, and that is the beginning of the lunar cycle at the beginning of the solar cycle. So right away we're moving forward. We're getting started. The sense of going forward, the sense of retrospection are both really, really strong at this time. And Pluto is at the very last minutes of Capricorn, waiting to jump in on March 23rd. Again, whole video dedicated to Pluto in Aquarius is coming out sometime after mid-month, considerably after mid-month, right? Not in the right middle. And the themes of Pluto in Aquarius are stated. These are the themes of Saturn in Aquarius, but it is changed. It is intensified. And so all of the things we've been dealing with in terms of control and things like that, in terms of our public discourse, in terms of social justice, everything gets real serious. And you will have noticed that things have been real serious. Now they're going to get really, really serious. Okay, so keep an eye out right around the 23rd. See what happens. See what you pick up on. See what the big stories are. As the month ends on March 28th, so let's say we're looking at the 27th through the 29th, but I want to give extra special credit to the 27th, maybe even the 26th. Mercury is going to square Pallas Athene, the truth teller asteroid, and then conjunct Jupiter. Now, and Mercury's in Aries, so which is another one of the signs he's not so thrilled about. With these aspects, we have this: I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the story as I see it. Mercury, Jupiter, always the tendency to say a little too much. In Aries, a tendency to be a little direct, maybe a little too direct. Some folks are going to get up on their soapboxes and start preaching to us, and we're going to get some kind of contentious energy. This is in Aries, right? Them's fighting words. Be sure that you don't say too much. Be sure that you're not being, you're not going to be boorish, but some people will. So watch that. And then finally, as the month ends, Venus meets with Uranus in her home sign of Taurus. This is a refresher for relationships that have been in a rocky place. This could be it. Although if Venus square Pluto wasn't it for you at mid-month, I doubt this will do it. But it's a great time to break out of established patterns, to try something new. If you're single, try somebody new. It's a time to do things in a different kind of way. Also, very likely to have a bit of an effect on financial markets. This, along with mid-month, is one of the aspects that I would say might be a little upsetting in terms of financial markets. I would really, 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 with this Venus conjunct Uranus right on March 30th, I would really keep my eye on surrounding days, what happens to cryptocurrencies. I have very little faith in their staying power, and I think that we're likely to see some real bounces with the Venus Pluto, but particularly with the Venus Uranus aspect at the end of the month. All right, that's an awful lot. It is a busy month. There's a lot going on. Careful around mid-month. Everything else, keep your eyes open and navigate one step at a time.